My name is Eric Vink. I head up the staff at the Delta Protection Commission. And on behalf of our commission, and do we have our commission chair on the phone or on the meeting? I saw someone named Oscar, but without a last name. I don't know if that's our chair, Oscar Villegas.
Yes, I am present. Eric.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Chair, would you like to give a welcome on behalf of the commission members?
I simply would want to say thank you all for volunteering and participating in what we hope to be a very fruitful next couple of years as we sort of frame the next steps for the National Heritage Area. It's been a long time coming, and we're very excited about the work that's in front of us. And we were just simply saying thank you for your willingness to lean in and to volunteer your precious time to help us craft it going forward. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair Oscar Villegas, and I super put him on the spot there, but I wanted to say that was the chair of our commission, Oscar Villegas, also Yolo County Supervisor, representing the part of Yolo County that includes the historic Clarksburg community. And what I would like to do is I will introduce myself, and then I'd like to open it up to the committee members to offer a similar introduction. And if it's okay, I will call on you by name to do that, just so we're not all talking at once. But it would be great to for you to introduce yourself to the group, your name, your affiliation, if you have one. And then here's the question: what you hope the National Heritage Area will bring to the Delta? And just really the first thought off your mind, but it would be, I think, helpful for all of us to get a little sense of what your own particular interest is in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area, and what you hope that might bring in a successful effort, which we have every expectation this will be. So again, to model this, my name is Eric Vink. I am the Executive Director at the Delta Protection Commission, and I'll be also serving as the chair of the National Heritage Area Management Plan Advisory Committee. As our chair, Oscar Villegas, said, our commission's very excited to have you working on this. They approved your appointments to this committee when they met in November. We're very excited to be meeting early in the new year. We're going to have a lot of work ahead of us in 2021. We'll attempt to complete that work through this wonderful tool of Zoom, but at some point, we hope to be able to meet in person when we're able to do so safely. And we'll look forward to that at that time. But for the time being, we will utilize Zoom, and we'll make it as productive as it can be. And what I hope the National Heritage Area will bring to the Delta is to just draw attention to all the wonderful history, culture, and features that we have in our Delta region, which I think is often overlooked because we are in an ocean of fascinating and wonderful places within our nearby region. But the Delta, I'd like to see added attention to all that we have to offer in this region. So with that, and going down the list for the committee members, I'll start with the committee members. Mike Campbell.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Campbell. I'm a lifetime resident of Clarksburg Farm. I've farmed in the Walnut Grove and Clarksburg area for a number of years. I'm currently the president of the Delta Regional Foundation and very involved in Clarksburg on an old schoolhouse project, 1883 schoolhouse project, which will restore the schoolhouse and collect the history of the, starting with the Miwok Indians, history of the residents of Clarksburg. And I'm excited to bring the Delta together. I think this is a real opportunity with this committee to bring the diverse communities together and as a unit. And I believe that that's what this area will become as it becomes identified both within the state, nationally, and internationally to visitors. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mike. And Lenora Clark. Hi, Lenora.
Call from 800 service. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lenora Clark, and I have lived in Discovery Bay for the last 31 years and have so enjoyed boating and all of the recreational aspects of the Delta. I'm on the board of directors and past president of Recreational Boaters of California, which is an advocacy group that meets with legislators on bills and regulations that have to do with water, the environment, and our ability to recreate on the water. I'm also past president and past commissioner for the Department of Boating and Waterways for 2 terms. And so I got to see the state's activities as far as recreating in the Delta and all throughout the waterways of the state of California, which was phenomenal. I am presently retired, and I would like to be able to share the Delta with others, because as Eric said, you know, we're in California, so there's so much rich opportunities to do so many different things. I was born and raised in the Bay Area before coming to the Delta, and it's like an untapped secret place, a secret garden that, again, I would like to share with a lot of other people, both from California and outside the state. And so I see part of our job as increasing the tourism and sharing the wealth that we have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lenora. Barbara Daly.
Barbara Daly.
Yeah, Blake, if you can, I think Barbara's listed as George Daly. Barbara, you're up on your screen. Can you speak?
Because mine's on mute.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yes, hi, I'm Barbara Daly. I'm glad you can hear me. I live in Clarksburg. I have a tourism business in Walnut Grove since 2013 called Delta Heartbeat Tours. Let's see, I'm the co-chair, currently the co-chair of the Delta Protection Commission Advisory Committee for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. I am the co-chair of a group called North Delta Cares that has been really instrumental in causing the Delta Stewardship Council to remand the twin tunnels to DWR. And I am currently the treasurer of the California Delta Chambers of Commerce, and I'm representing them on this committee. And I'm wanting to be on the committee because I believe that this will bring protection to and highlight the Delta's history, agriculture, recreation, and natural resources. And that's why I want to be involved, to help do that. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you, Barbara. Paulette Hinham. I should have warned you all, we're going in alphabetical order, just like in the classroom. Paulette, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Hi, Eric. My name is Paulette Henham. I live in Cortland. I'm a newbie. I've only been here about 9 years now, which in Delta terms is very, very short time. We own a business in Walnut Grove, the Bartlett, a B&B, and I retired 2 years ago from state parks. I used to work with Katy Metro years ago for a long time at that in high. I'm retired as the manager of Tribal Affairs Program. And I worked on repatriation of Native American human remains for a number of years with the state. Before that, I worked at the Crocker Art Museum for a long time. So anyway, I'm really thrilled to be on this group, on this committee. And what I'm looking for is to help increase the health, and I mean that in the broadest sense of the word, health and prosperity of the Delta. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Paulette. Matt Holmes.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, great, thanks. Matt Holmes, I'm a 12-year resident in the city of Stockton, but I've been hanging out there for 20 years. That's where I met my wife. I have a background and I have education and training in Indian white relations, military and labor history. I had the privilege of dressing like a park ranger for about 7 years and worked at Port Chicago Naval Weapons Magazine, National Memorial, as well as John Muir's house and Eugene O'Neill's house. And then I spent another 7 years working in the environmental justice sector in Richmond, California, doing workforce development training around restoration ecology and all those sorts of things. And I've recently relocated my professional life to where I actually live in Stockton. And so I work with Little Manila Rising on increasing access to the waterfront for traditionally underrepresented populations in South Stockton. And I guess maybe I should disclose we work in contract with Restore the Delta. So I'm really excited to bring an equity lens to this work. I'm of the opinion that you help those that need the most first, and it lifts the whole story. So I look forward to working with you all and learning more about this opportunity.
Great. Thanks a lot, Matt. Douglas Shaw.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Douglas Shaw. Well, I have been really happily living in the Delta for the past 5 years, and I've been involved with Locke Foundation, and I'm also the newly elected president of the Locke Management Corporation. And for the past 2 years, I'm happy that I was engaged in the SEC or under the DCA, the DPAC, and also the Sacramento Area Museum. So I guess my calling here is to put the heritage of the Delta on the national map. And the Delta is not only important to the Chinese American history, because there are not many that is known, and it also plays an important part of the Chinese history in the mainland. So there's a lot of stories to be untold, and it will be my pleasure to bring it to the national map. Thank you.
Thanks, Douglas. Carol Jensen.
Hello, everybody. I'm so pleased to be appointed to this board and so happy to see many familiar faces, either on the board and interested in the Delta. So it's great to be amongst friends with a topic that we're all passionate about. I am literally next door neighbor here to Lenora Clark from Discovery Bay. I'm from Brentwood and currently sit as the chair of the Contra Costa Historic Landmarks Committee to the board of the supervisors of Contra Costa County, local author, lifetime resident of the Delta. Even though I'm only 25, I feel as though I have 50 years experience, and very much looking forward to participating as an active member of this committee. Thank you and happy to be with you.
Great. Thanks so much, Carol. Janet Lake.
Hi, my name is Janet Lake, and I've lived in Sacramento my whole life and Freeport for the last 20 years. I'm on the executive committee for the Freeport Community Association, and I'd like to see the Delta brand awareness for the Delta and protect and restore the historical aspects and the natural resources of the Delta so it's not destroyed. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thanks a lot, Janet. Gia Moreno.
Hi, Eric. I'm Gia Moreno. I am a 5th generation Hood resident. I am part of the Hood Community Council, and I'm the Hood representative for the DCA Stakeholder Engagement Committee. I'm really looking forward to all of this, and I'm hoping that the National Heritage Area will bring more awareness to the various cultures of the Delta and all of the educational and ecological aspects of the Delta, not just, recreational or business. We have so many things to offer, and I can't wait to work with everybody on letting the world know about us.
That's wonderful. And I should have asked this to Matt, but Gia, would you mind turning on your video for just a moment if you're willing to? If you're not, that's okay. There she is. Hey, Gia. And then Matt, I forgot. You look like a distributaried Delta, but that was just your photo. There you go. Wonderful. Thanks. Great. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's go to James Motlow.
There we go. Hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes.
It's an honor to be with this group. I'm really looking forward to participating in this. A little bit about me. I live in Locke. I lived in Locke in the 1970s, and in the 1980s when I co-author, I came back and did a series of oral histories of the residents of Locke that I knew, and I produced a book called Bitter Melon that was published by the University of Washington. I've been back in Locke since 2010, and I've been part of the Locke Management Association as its treasurer. I currently represent Locke on the Delta Legacy communities, and I had the great privilege and honor of working with Barbara Daly on the efforts in order to force the Delta Stewardship Council to reconsider the development of the twin tunnels. A little bit of more about me, in a sense that my family, my mother's side, first came to California in the 1840s. A distant relative of mine, the William Hank Hazelton, is credited with bringing the first naval orange tree into the San Joaquin Valley. So, and then my other existence was I was a captain for the Blue and Gold Fleet out on San Francisco Bay. So I've been aware of water. My grandfather was one of the chief engineers on the Central Valley Project long ago. So I've seen water from both ends of the farmers to what it does into San Francisco Bay and the Delta. And my focus that I wish to hopefully accomplish, and the group hopes to accomplish, is, as what's already been stated probably, is the awareness and the preservation hand in hand with the Delta, because with the town of Locke, the more that we have active people coming through and are curious about the town and such, the greater the public awareness will allow Locke to continue into a second 100 years. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, James. Elizabeth Patterson. Oh, you're muted, Elizabeth.
Well, I swore I wasn't going to do that. So I'm Elizabeth Patterson. I was saying that I'm a native Californian. My mother was born in Los Angeles, and one of the reasons I live in Benicia is because it reminds me so much of the older communities that I lived in LA, which is really hard for people to comprehend. And some other time I can explain that. My professional background is I'm an urban regional planner, and I was recruited by the State Lands Commission to be the project lead for developing the status and trends report on the public trust resources of the Delta. And that led to the legislation for the establishment of the Delta Protection Commission. And I was the first representative for the State Lands Commission on the inaugural session of the Delta Protection Commission. And somebody mentioned the Stewardship Council, and I was hesitating about saying this, but I was the land use representative for the task force that made the recommendations for the Stewardship Council. And I also was the one who drove the idea of consistency. So I'm very proud of that, because always I was thinking about the Delta. My first introduction to the Delta was through soil. I've been interested in soil for a long time, and I got involved in an issue in 1978. So I've kind of been around the Delta for a while, and recently retired from the Benicia City Council as a 3-term mayor. And then actually after a 4th term on the city council prior to that, and then prior to that, various other functions. So about 24 years with working in the city. So I'm having a new life with that. And I'm a retired annuitant state staff environmental scientist. So want to say one more thing about the status and trends report. As far as I know, we were the first report that ever talked about land use of the Delta. And the reason was we didn't want to get into the water wars. And we thought if we dealt with land use, we would have a better chance of protecting the Delta. And I think that has borne out to be true. All of you are advocates for the Delta, and it seems to circle around the ideas of the agriculture, the economy, the natural resources, recreation. And for me to be what I want to see that comes out of this, I was very impressed with the results of the East Chesapeake Bay National Heritage Area. And I thought, why can't we be like that? And so that's what inspires me, because the Delta is unique. It's one of a kind, as you all know. No place in the world is there a place like this Delta, and it's absolutely needs to be protected. And so I'm really happy to be working with all of you so we can achieve some recognition.
That's great. Thanks, Elizabeth. David Stewart.
Thank you, Eric. I'm really excited to work with all of you and on this committee. I have deep roots in the Delta. I grew up in San Joaquin County and spent my childhood and so on recreating in the Delta. My brother, in fact, after he retired from farming, was a professional fishing guide in the Delta for a couple decades. My great-great-grandfather settled on Grand Island in 1860, and our family was heavily involved in farming. My great-grandfather started the Stewart's Tree Nursery, which just ended business a decade or so ago in French Camp. But so a long connection with ag in the area. And professionally, I started my career at Caswell State Park as a park aide, a seasonal park aide, and got really interested in anthropology because I got to assist Native American women that came into the park to gather sedge root for basketry. And that really set me on my professional course, and I became an anthropology major, worked for the National Park Service as a cultural resource specialist and planner, and then more recently was a museum director, including the Sacramento Science Center, the Sacramento History Museum in Old Sacramento, and ended my career as a director in my home county of the San Joaquin County Historical Museum in Mickey Grove Park between Lodi and Stockton. And it's probably there that I really, at that museum, that I really got an appreciation for the ag history. And it's really shaped San Joaquin County, and the innovations that came out of the Delta are really very little appreciated or known. And so I think that's an important legacy. I'm retired, and I live in Sacramento, just upriver from Janet, and in the Pocket area, right near the Sacramento River, and I'm helping with the Clarksburg Schoolhouse project, so I'm excited to do that. And so I just, my hope for what comes out of the natural heritage area is that is really awareness and appreciation of all aspects of the Delta, but especially including the cultures, the Native American significance of the Delta, but also the ag history too. So I'm excited to be part of the group and look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. Melissa Tayaba.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can. Hi, Melissa.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm driving. Hi, my name is Melissa Tayaba. I am from the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians. I currently am the tech director for the tribe, which is traditional ecological knowledge. I currently also am I am sitting on the committee, the stakeholder engagement committee right now, as the tribal representative, along with Chairman Taringo from Wilton. And that's been a really good experience, most importantly, because it really allows us tribes to work together. So we have a core group of Delta tribes who work together on a monthly basis. And so that's really good for us. And we're actually really excited and happy to be participating in this, because one of the best things, I think, is that we have a seat at the table and we're able to kind of let you guys know what we value. And so I know one of the questions was about the National Heritage Area and what we'd like to bring to it. And I think from a tribal perspective, what's important to tribes, I think we're really going to be focused on natural resources, obviously our burial sites, and I think the overall just health of the Delta. The Delta was a really special place. It was our home. And we're very interested in what's happening to the Delta now and what will happen and the future of the Delta. So we're very happy to be here, and hopefully we can, help. Hopefully we'll be able to help you guys and really give you some good information when asked about certain things. And so thank you again.
Thanks a lot, Melissa. Jan Vick.
Hi, I am really excited to participate in this organization. I have been retired from the state for about 18 years. It doesn't seem that long, but it is. And when I was the mayor of Rio Vista, where I live now, I was on the Protection Commission, and for 3 years, I think, on total. And I got off just about when the feasibility study was completed. So I didn't see that through to the end. I've lived in the Delta, in Rio Vista, and partly on the Loop for 25 years now. So I'm still considered a newbie, particularly in Rio Vista, because we have a lot of old families here, which is wonderful. right now, I am chairman of the Army Base Steering Committee. We have an old Army base just to the south of town that nobody knows about. It was very important during the days of reclamation. And the Army have had a base for many, many years there. And we're working with DWR to bring a resource station there that would bring all of the Delta science research, both state and federal, to a science center there, as well as a fish technology center with the fish and wildlife. Rio Vista gets to develop the beautiful waterfront that is on the Army base. And so we're working toward that. So I think that the Delta, to me, I'm a photographer and have spent the 25 years out and about in the Delta taking a lot of pictures. And to me, it's just a magical place. I love it. I want to protect it. I want to preserve the agriculture that's here. I want to preserve the towns and the historic areas, and use of the National Heritage Area to make more people aware of what a marvelous place this is. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jan. And Jean Yokotobi.
Well, I guess I'm last. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jean, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I've been part of the Delta, especially Ileton, since 1963. I've been coming here for many, many years, and eventually purchased property here. I have 2 historic buildings. I restored one, and I'm in the final stages of restoring my second building. I'm the past president of the Ileton Historical Society. I'm also the past president of the Ileton Chamber of Commerce. And then currently I'm the president of the Delta Educational Cultural Society. And we are involved in the project called Asian American Heritage Park. And that is moving forward now quite well. And I'm also on the board, the Walnut Grove Buddhist Church Board. I've seen Ileton in its best days and its worst, well, the Delta, I should say, in its best days and its worst days. And I think it's really important that we all work together to try to restore and preserve what we have. The foundation is still here for a great destination for tourism and other recreational activities and learning about the history, the cultural history. So I'm really kind of excited that we're all here coming from different parts of the community and focusing on one goal. So, and the other thing is because I'm very close to the Asian American community, I am a Tula Lake internee.
Great, thanks a lot, Jean. I appreciate that introduction. So those are the voting members of the committee. We have ex officio members as well. Can I ask, is Matthew Moore, was he able to join us? Are you there, Matthew?
Yes, I'm here, finally, yeah.
Wonderful, well, great, welcome. Would you like to offer a brief introduction along the lines of what you heard before?
Yeah, well, my name is Matthew Moore. I grew up in the Auburn area, just north of Sacramento. I come from the Anishinaabe heritage. I went to school up here, went to Sierra College, went into firefighting. I was 19, and that's what I kind of did for a career, 25 years, but I worked for local departments, the state. Ended up with City of Sacramento Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic. But that was my career, and I was always very much involved in the outdoors and My mother was a very good teacher when it came to teaching kind of what the plants and, you know, the landscape and what everything does and what it's for, and coming up in that cultural background. So after my 25 years in the fire service, I started to work in preservation work for my Indian tribe, United Auburn Indian Community. We're Maidu and Miwok. So for the last 7 years, I've been working on doing committee work and also as the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. There for a while, I was playing kind of a dual role. I was the chairman of the Tribal Historic Preservation Committee, and as well as being the Historic Preservation Officer. So with that work, it's really gotten me back kind of to my roots, growing up, and really giving back to my our little community and preservation work and restoring the our culture, you know, things that we've kind of lost, trying to bring things back, educating the youth. You know, it's everything, just our whole culture. So it's, in a big ball of wax. I mean, it's just very, very busy work, and and there's always things to do.
Yeah, well, Matthew, we're glad you could join us. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're well beyond our allotted time for this. It's great to have you participating. Let me, for the interest of time, and my apologies to Mike Moran and Jeff Henderson and Trevor Rice and Campbell Ingram. Mike's with East Bay Regional Park District. We'll hear from him in a moment. Trevor Rice, National Park Service. Jeff Henderson, Delta Stewardship Council, and Campbell Ingram, the Sacramento San Joaquin Delta Conservancy. It took more time than we thought, but I think it's good to for our members to have a chance to get their voice out there, get their square out there in this case, and to let people know what their particular interest is. We have some other people joining the meeting. I won't introduce them, but I'm glad that you're joining us. Thank you, Linda and Bill and Amanda and Tony and others. We appreciate you being here. But let me, before I turn it over to the next item on the agenda, let me just refer you to the ground rules that we had set aside, or that we had proposed in the charter. Kind of violating the first one, beginning and ending the meetings on time, but there's a handful of these. If you want to take a look at them, we're not asking for you to vote on them. If there's any particular concern you have about any of the ground rules, that would be great to know. I guess it would be good to have everyone's assent that they're willing to participate according to these ground rules. Basically, it's what you would expect to find, one person speaking at a time, treating all opinions with respect, commenting constructively and specifically, coming prepared for the meetings, consulting with your particular constituencies and providing input to the discussions from those constituencies, and staying focused on the charge of the committee. So is there any objection to any of those proposed ground rules, or just basically good rules of proceeding with a group of this type? Okay, I rushed that through, but I think it's important. I will, we'll ask you to, review those from time to time, but they're just good basic pointers for proceeding. So with that, let me turn it over to Augie Carlino and Nancy Morgan. They're part of our consultant team at Point Heritage Development Consulting, and I'll allow each of them to give a brief introduction to themselves. But we're now on agenda item number 2, the introduction to the National Heritage Area Program. Augie and Nancy.
Well, I was waiting for Nancy, but I'll jump in. Thank you, Eric. And it's good to see some familiar faces from our visit when we were there in March. Some familiar names too, some Park Service folks that I recognize names with. I have to say, I think speaking for Carolyn and Nancy, we were all hoping that this type of meeting could be done face-to-face, not over internet, but face-to-face, being present in California. We had a great trip in March, which was at the very beginning of this pandemic. So hopefully we'll all get vaccinated soon so that we can get together at some point in time and conclude the rest of this work with you all and us present in a room together. I've got some slides to show as part of our presentation. And in the interest of time, I'll jump right into that. And Eric, at that point, I can give a little bit more background about each of us as a team. So at some point, I will get the opportunity to take over the presentation. Bear with us while we work through the technology. I see Blake looking. I don't mean to put him on the spot, but.
If you, Augie, if you want, I can start your presentation. I can figure that out.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll share my screen
and then you'll give me the opportunity, or am I just going to tell you to move on with each slide?
How about we? Why don't I will. Why don't you just let me know when you want to?
Okay.
Move that. Okay. Hopefully you're able to see this.
Yeah. Can you put it up in slide view?
Sure.
Okay. So our team is made up of not just myself, but Nancy Morgan, who is out of Tallahassee, Florida, and Carolyn Brackett out of Nashville. Together, the three of us have been working as a team under the Point Heritage Development Consulting Group, or under Carolyn's organization, as independent consultants to each other for about 10 years. Collectively, though, however, and you can move on to the next slide, Blake, collectively, we've got about an 80-year combined professional experience in heritage development, heritage areas, heritage tourism. I have to tell you, I'm privileged to work with two folks that are nationally recognized in their fields. Carolyn is one of the premier and foremost national heritage area tourism experts, and Nancy, with a cultural anthropology background with association within the Park Service. So it's at least with the two of them, you've got a good team. There's questions about me out there. We'll leave that out to the jury to decide. What are heritage areas? National heritage areas are places that are significant to the story of the nation. They are landscapes, large landscapes, typically that have a commonality of a story, of culture, of history and heritage. This is moving a whole lot faster. Blake, I think it's on an automatic timer. If you're able to change that. They are places that share cultural history, common threads. We heard Mr. Campbell talking about tying the region and the areas and the groups together. That's a strong outcome and goal of all the heritage areas. And they are places that Congress has recognized, and the Park Service has been assigned the responsibility by acts of Congress when they create the national heritage areas to work with those communities and that heritage area in conserving and promoting the history and heritage of that region. So you can go on to the next slides, like, and after that too. And as I talked about, there are a lot of different elements within this. There are ways to combine those resources directly into experience. And when we talk about a heritage area, we have to remember, we're not just talking about tourism and promoting in order to bring people to the site, but we have to remember that one of the biggest, strongest opportunities we have is promoting our region to people that live and work in these communities, so that they are understanding of who they are and become ambassadors to a community as well.
I'm sorry, Augie, I don't know why it's having a mind of its own right now.
Blake, if you do find a way to share, it might be easier for us to run them then.
Yeah, actually, Augie, you now have the capability to be co-host, so maybe that might be a better option.
Okay, let me see if I can't find the presentation, because I did not have it. But bear with me.
Oh, okay. Well, I can run it from here if you like. For
Yeah,
some reason, I don't know
please.
why it's running.
I don't think you want to push play at the top left, Blake. You want to just put present from the lower right.
Okay. Okay. Is this the correct slide?
We're not seeing any slides, Blake.
Which? Oh, no slides? Okay.
No, you need to share again.
Oh. Sorry. This is one of those nightmares you have during the Zoom era. No.
There we go.
Okay. And then
The lower left nearest the plus and minus. Or sorry, lower right. The little one that looks like a book. We'll play it like a book. Yes.
And Blake, I hate, there you go. I was going to say you had Nancy's part of the presentation up. So the next slide, if you could, Blake, with the one with the map. There, oh, you went to one back. There we go.
Okay.
The Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area is one of 6 new National Heritage Areas designated in 2019 by Congress. The majority of the 6 came from the western part of the country, not all of them. But this is a movement that you can see has a strong presence in the eastern part of the country. But for the last 10, 15 years, heritage areas have been taking root and gaining more interest in the western and midwestern Rocky Mountain parts of this country. National heritage areas are locally planned and managed. You all are named as a coordinating entity by the Congress in the legislation that created the National Heritage Area for you. You not only receive technical assistance from the National Park Service, but with the designation, you also get some appropriations funding that help you to manage the heritage area, operate it, and ultimately at the end, when the management plan is completed, we hope there will be more money that comes to you that helps you implement programs and projects, the recommendations that come out of the National Heritage Area. They're managed by a whole bunch of different organizations, nonprofits, Some of them are universities that manage them, and a few are governmental agencies, you all being one, and a couple others around the country. Next slide, Blake. Now, what are heritage areas not? This is important. Despite the fact that you are designated within a legislation that is a part of National Park Service legislation, you are not a national park. You are not a national monument. You're not a national landmark. Even though the Park Service is there as a partner, you are not managed or owned. There's no land control by the Park Service or the federal government within any agency. So be wary of and be prepared to make sure people know that there are no adverse effects, no negative impacts to private property rights. Nothing within the legislation will remove those rights of property owners, water rights, hunting and fishing rights from anyone within your designated national heritage area. Next. We'll get into these a little bit further on with some of what Nancy talks about, but these are the common goals of what heritage areas work on. Preservation of historic resources, cultural conservation. When we talk about those, we're talking about those intangible elements that make a place unique. The stories, the culture, the traditions, the folk ways, the folk art that survive our ancestors that settled a region and are a part of who we are today, even those customs and traditions that celebrate new peoples that are settling areas from different parts of the country or new traditions. And religion is a part of it. Storytelling is a part of it. We have a lot of opportunities for recreation. Out of all of it, we have the chance for education, both a big E education in a formal sense, but also a small e education in the term of interpretation. And that is telling the story to visitors and people that live there about the significance of an area. It builds toward a tourism base where people come because you all will make this place even more known than it is right now. And we know out of all of this, when you spend money in preservation, when you spend money on recreation development and asset development, interpretation and education, and within tourism, there's an economic benefit to communities that has a dollar for dollar and sometimes a greater dollar for dollar impact on the economic benefit to a region. That's been accounted for by the Park Service with a number of existing heritage areas. The numbers are quite impressive, and we want to work with you and develop a plan that gets you to that point of success several years down the road. Again, a lot of what Nancy will be talking about will go into these a little bit more detail. You can go to that next slide, Blake. Heritage areas work on redeveloping downtowns. They work on repurposing old historic buildings, restoring natural areas. Next. As I said, interpretation and education, helping small museums and large museums with exhibits. Signage becomes a big issue, not just wayfinding signage, but also interpretive signage along trails. A lot of heritage areas, particularly a lot of the colleagues of ours in the East, build hiking and biking trails. Many of them in Pennsylvania and New York and some of the other older states, older in the sense of dating back to colonial era times, when trails were towpaths then alongside canalways. Those canalways and those towpaths have been converted to hiking and biking trails. It opens the opportunity for a whole bunch of different things that allow people to get out and enjoy community and enjoy nature. Next. We also partner with tourism agencies. We are not necessarily a tourism promotion agency, but I like to say heritage areas tend to be the tourism development entity out there. You know, the tourism agency needs a place to promote. They need something to tell people to go to visit. Oftentimes those assets in a community are underdeveloped. And what the heritage area can do with the money that it gets from the federal government or other money it raises is invest in those resources so the tourism agency can put that on their agenda as places for others to go to visit. We also talked about promotional art, promotional traditional art, and those are the common elements that we all share as people as part of our ancestry, not just with indigenous people or Native American people, but the settlement of America after that. And what are those traditions that people brought and those traditions that still survive as a part of the community that we live in and the celebrations that take place around special times of year. Next. So the benefits are multi-layered. One, greater economic vitality. Money is spent on projects to do things in communities. As I said, after that, people come to visit, and that money is spread throughout the community. There's a willingness and a partnership where the community comes together, where they begin to cross-market and publicize themselves.
But I'm going to log out here. I just wanted to see what they were doing.
Where they begin to cross-market and publicize each other as part of the heritage area. There's a stronger partnership across all sectors of the community. And when you get the result of that, you get the benefit of all heritage areas working together within a community that makes the heritage area a whole lot more stronger. The benefit of that comes with heritage areas becoming stronger advocates for things they want to do in those communities. That's almost like an intangible benefit that comes out of this. There's an identification of a community sense of pride, a quality of life that's developed through the preservation work, through the conservation of all the historic, cultural, and natural assets within the community, and the potential for other money then to become invested in the community. We have seen, and it's been documented by the National Park Service and by other economic agencies at state and federal levels, that the dollar match that comes out of the money that Congress gives to the Park Service to allocate the heritage areas, that dollar is matched at times by $5 to $6 to $7 additional money that comes in from private foundations, corporate sponsors, other federal grants, other state grants, other local grants. And so the seed investment that Congress provides through the Park Service to heritage area actually becomes a catalyst for the community to generate more money to put into projects. And then that money goes a whole lot further to the benefit of the community in the region. Next. There's a recognition of commonalities. And we all live, I like to think, or at least I don't want to think about it. My experience is everybody thinks they live in the most parochial place in the United States, that each of our communities could work together in different ways. Heritage areas become this across the board bond, the glue that holds everybody together. And we recognize the similarities of ourselves while appreciating what differences might exist. And as I said, when we identify those commonalities and recognize where we can each help each other, the strength of a region becomes much more powerful for those communities to work together. We save those stories about people and places that make our homes and our communities special. And out of that becomes a sense of pride, a sense of place. We all know it's difficult to market and promote a place as a place where we would want people to maybe buy a house or a business to locate. It's difficult to do that if people have a negative feeling about themselves, whether expressed or something that just is beneath the surface that you can feel when you walk into a community. What heritage areas do is say, let's look at that negativity. What is it? An abandoned building that has an historic value? Let's invest in that place so that it becomes something that we all can be proud of. And there's probably no other program that I know of in all my years of working in heritage areas, plus my background in government, which is really where I've cut my teeth, where there is as strong a citizens movement and involvement, particularly with young people. And we all know that is probably the greatest asset that we have in any of our communities, the youth of our communities that are going to be the future of those places as we move on in our lives and we hand over the mantle to those people as they grow to maturity to take over the responsibility of keeping our communities alive. What we get out of all that is this increased commitment to preserve and share, not just within our heritage area, but in that map that I showed you earlier of those 55 places, there is a powerful national movement of an association of heritage areas that are all advocating for more money for heritage areas, for designation standards for heritage areas, for building heritage areas into the system of the Park Service, for recognition of states to embrace heritage areas as a part of their policy and budgeting so that these can become permanent places as a part of what we do as a nation and what we do in the 50 states of our country. So that commitment to preserve is not only a formal application of it, but an informal application of it, of people sharing best practices and stories and ways that we all can assist and benefit from each other's experience and knowledge. Next. I think that's mine, and I'm going to turn it over to Nancy at this point because she has some things to talk about, I believe. Or Blake, no, you're next on the agenda. Yeah. Or Nancy.
Yeah, so Augie, does that cover agenda item number 2?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm not, I know Nancy has slides to show. That might be following me in the wake of my presentation, I believe.
No, Nancy is further down in the agenda
She is,
to talk about
she is further down.
partnerships.
There she is, item
Yeah.
number 5. So
Blake is next.
Eric, yes, that ends that item.
Yeah.
Great. Any quick clarifying questions for Augie?
Oh, I have one question. Is there any kind of like annual convention of NHA in the country?
That's a interesting question. The heritage areas many years ago used to hold conferences that were inviting not just heritage area managers, the organizations that run them, but also practitioners in the communities. And we did those for a number of years. That ended shortly after 9/11, not necessarily for the reasons of 9/11, but for a bunch of other reasons where we had gone through probably 6 or 7 different heritage areas where we did a convention like that. 2 or 3 of them were actually international heritage development conferences where people from other countries came to the United States, and we had been invited to other countries that have similar types of programs. France has a very strong heritage program. England has a very strong heritage program. There's some developing in other parts of the world. But to answer your question directly, no, there is not a convention anymore. But the one thing that the heritage areas do is get together every year in Washington in order to advocate to Congress for their needs for the upcoming budget cycle. I don't think that's going to happen necessarily in person this year because of COVID, but we're talking about how we end up getting our message to Congress as we all live in this pandemic state we're in.
Thank you.
Augie,
Yeah,
if I could,
oh,
I was just
Go
going to
ahead,
mention
Carol.
real quickly, there was a time for several years when the directors of heritage areas would get together, and there was actually a get together scheduled last year in the Mississippi Delta for all the heritage area directors, and it had to be canceled because of COVID. So there might, when this is all over, that might be an opportunity again, because the heritage areas like hosting the other directors. So that might be an option in the
Right.
future if they're able to start doing those again.
Yeah, and Eric and I were able to participate in the one in Santa Fe, which was in fall of 2019.
Yeah, suffice it to say, we will be a part of that national network of national heritage areas. Any other questions for Augie? Thank you, Augie and Carolyn.
I noticed that Mike raised his hand, so I'm gonna unmute him.
Just real quick to build upon what Augie was saying, Douglas, the National Association for Interpretation has annual conferences and workshops, and NHA's played a big role in presentations this past year. And some of those presentations are still on the NAI website, and they were really a big hit with the National Interpretation Group.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I will talk to you privately. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other clarifying questions? Yeah, Matt Holmes says the National Council on Public History also has some of this information on their website. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Augie. Let's move on to agenda item number 3. Blake Roberts, you all know, Blake's our program manager for the commission. He'll be our lead on National Heritage Area efforts, and he's going to drill down a little more specifically to our own Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area. Blake?
Okay. Yes, and hopefully I will be able to run this efficiently, unlike the last time this happened. Sorry to Augie for the technical issues on that. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay. So some of you have seen similar presentations to this. I apologize for some of the redundancy, but I at least wanted to give sort of an overview of our particular national heritage area and how that works.
Yeah, if everyone could mute their phones, please. And Blake,
Yeah.
no redundancy, just speed through anything that Augie already touched on, if you would.
Okay.
Interest of time. Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to briefly mention, and this is Linda Stonier, who's on the conference, let me this slide. This really defines sort of the lifespan or the life cycle of a national heritage area. Initially, we started out back in 2012 doing a feasibility study just to determine whether the Delta was a good candidate for being a national heritage area. Now that we're designated, now we're going through the management plan process, and thank you all for being part of that. Then we'll move on to implementation and project planning as part of the management plan. And then eventually we'll move on to evaluation and sort of determining what kind of projects we're doing and how we're doing, and if there's anything that we need to revise our management plan. So this is sort of the life cycle, is that it eventually sort of, after a while, we will kind of come back to this and determine how we're doing. But this is the initial start in terms of the work that we're doing. So as I mentioned, 2012, we finished our feasibility study. And then in 2019, March of 2019, we were formally designated by Congress. These are the boundaries that we have for the National Heritage Area. There's been some, it's similar to what is, commonly called the legal delta, but there are obviously there's some things that are a little different. Particularly, it goes farther west into Vallejo, Benicia, Martinez area than the legal delta does. And one of the things that we will be doing during this process is that we will be talking about the boundaries of this National Heritage Area. Notice that Stockton is not part of the National Heritage Area, and the city of Sacramento isn't. These are things that we would like to discuss a little bit during the process and sort of determine whether there might be any need to recommend boundary changes. These boundary changes will need to go through Congress, though, eventually. I think a lot of you are probably already familiar with a lot of the projects that we've been doing so far. One of the things that we've really attempted to do is, act like a national heritage area during the time we were waiting to become a national heritage area. And so some of you might have participated in some of the elements we have here, community action planning. We had our Delta Heritage Forum last November. These are things that we have been doing to work on that really promote the idea of heritage within the area and kind of that common bond that we all have as members and representatives of the Delta. So just to give you, the commission is designated as the local coordinating entity. And so that means several things. One is that we're required to develop the management plan. The management plan is supposed to be done within 3 years of designation. Although there's some questions about the timeline due to some differing interpretations of federal law. But our hope is to finish up the management plan within the next couple of years. Public outreach during and after the planning process. This is our first initial public outreach as part of the National Heritage Area, but I guarantee you that we will continue to have an ongoing public outreach process throughout the life cycle of the National Heritage Area. This is not something that is just a one and done, but rather something that we continue to do over time. We will be working with different partners, governments, nonprofits, other groups in implementing the plan. And so that will be something we'll be working on. And then we submit an annual report to the Secretary of Interior every year. So we'll be going into more detail about this as time goes on, but there are several different components of the management plan that are required by federal law. One is that we need to have a series of policies, strategies, and recommendations. Really, what is the type of national heritage area we want to be, and what type of things do we want to pursue as national heritage area? There's also the resource inventory, and this goes into a lot of depth about the natural resources, the recreation resources, the cultural and historical resources, all those different elements that make up sort of those important elements of the components of the Delta. So we will be doing an inventory of that. We'll be going. The interpretive plan will be something we'll be talking about sooner rather than later. We have Katie Metro and Heather Holm and Amanda Blosser with California State Parks that are on the call, and they will be assisting us with the interpretive plan. Really, the interpretive plan is about what are the stories that we're going to be telling within the Delta, and how are we going to tell those stories? And then finally, implementation and funding programs. So, how are we going to get these, the things that we lay out within the management plan, how are we going to do this and how are we going to fund it? And I should mention is that we do receive a certain amount of money from the National Park Service, and we are required to match that 1-to-1. So one of the things that we will be talking about soon is sort of your involvement in the National Heritage Area, because as part of your role in serving on the advisory committee, you are, volunteering your time for this. And so this is something that we want to make sure that the federal government knows that it's not just, we will be counting on a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations that are assisting us in the management, in the implementation of the National Heritage Area. So this is the schedule that we sort of lined out right now, but probably at our next meeting, we will be going more into detail about the management plan schedule. So, started 2021, we'll be having meetings with the advisory committee and the task groups. Carolyn will be talking about the task groups a little bit more. We'll obviously have the outreach to partners and the public. So not just the committee, but we'll be reaching out to different partners within the Delta and as well as the public at large. And then we're working on the development of different management plan components. Obviously, interpretive plan is something that we're going to be starting sooner rather than later. And then we're going to be looking at alternatives. And really what that means is what types what type of national heritage area are we going to be? Do we want to pursue economic development more? Do we want to pursue tourism more? What are the certain things that we want to focus our energies on? Then 2022, completion of the management plan components, compilation of the management plan into like a final document for the commission to review and approve, submission to the National Park Service, hopefully a quick review by them, approval by the Secretary of Interior, and then we start implementing. So that's sort of the idea that we have right now. I'm not going to really go into too much more detail about this because I think the ground rules sort of already cover sort of what the principles are of the National Heritage Area Advisory Committee. But I at least wanted to mention that we have, we think of the committee as having two main purposes. One is to provide us with recommendations on the management plan and how we want to proceed forward with the management plan. And then also we want to get input from a lot of different types of stakeholders. And so one of the things that we're hoping to hear from you is your opinion, and also any way you can solicit opinion from other groups as well. So this is sort of a phone tree in a way where you're we're reaching out to you, and we hope that you will be able to reach out to other groups as well that you think should be part of this process. And so one of the things that we'll be talking a little bit more about later is partnerships and how we want to involve the committee in sort of developing these partnerships over time. So these are the principles we have. I think I'm going to kind of rush through this pretty fast, just because I think it's very similar to what we have already in the ground rules. But I think one of the things we really want to be aware of is that there's going to be there's a lot of different groups and a lot of different people within the Delta, and so one of the things we really want to do is be cognizant of that and really try to figure out how to deal with some disparities within the community and how to outreach to different parts of the community. I think those are the things that I wanted to touch on now, and then I can hand it back to Derek.
Great, thank you, Blake. And everyone, I think there was one binder we were not able to distribute. We will get that distributed, but I think everyone else should have received a binder with the charter, with other background information. I'd encourage you to review that charter again if you haven't looked at it prior to this meeting. A lot of what Blake covered at the end is covered in the charter for the committee. And then of course, there's a lot of other helpful information in that binder. So please keep it handy. We'll send you additional information as we work our way through this process. Are there any clarifying questions for Blake about what he just presented?
Blake and Eric, I did want to say that I had the opportunity to look through the binder, and it is excellent. And if others haven't had a chance, it's got so much information in it, because as I was reading through the charter and coming up with ideas, as I leaf through the binder, a lot of that information is there for the tapping.
Thank you, Lenora. I appreciate that. And the binder includes excerpts from the feasibility study, which I'd really draw your attention to as well. It'll just, for me, it got my thinking started about what we could focus on with this National Heritage Area. And of course, we want input from all of you on that very question.
Just to respond to Paula had a thing in the chat. I just wanted to mention that the California Indian Heritage Center is slightly outside the boundaries of the National Heritage Area, but we intend to be a partner with them as they develop that project.
Yeah, for those not aware, this is it within the city of West Sacramento, directly across from the confluence of the American River and the Sacramento River.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other?
So thank you.
Elizabeth, I don't know if you had a question. Now we could hear you. Go ahead.
Thanks. So the Benicia Historic Museum has the Yuba manufacturing exhibit, and which is part of the heritage in the Delta, sort of. And it's outside the boundaries. And so I just wanted to note that we could come back and visit that, because I think it's an important area for sort of the Delta history and then some of the functions of the Delta.
Yeah, the boundaries will continue to be a challenge. My hope is that we can be respectful of the boundaries, but we're telling a broader story, and we really want to be inclusive of everything that is considered to be part of the Delta. So I don't know exactly what the boundaries mean in terms of how we expend federal monies. Maybe that's something that Augie or Carolyn or Nancy could address, but that might be the only constraint. But in terms of considering it to be part of the National Heritage Area, especially areas like those parts of Stockton and Sacramento that have such a direct connection to the Delta, it would just seem silly to, focus on the boundaries to the exclusion of those areas.
Right, so it's not changing the boundaries, it's just identifying other resources that complement and support. The boundaries for the Carquinez Strait are in a MOU with the 2 counties and the 4 cities, and I think East Bay Regional Park, but I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on Blake's presentation? Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 4, which is Carolyn Brackett from the Point Heritage consulting team is going to talk about NHA advisory task groups. Carolyn?
Thanks. And Blake, are you going to just call up the PowerPoint and advance it?
Actually, you should be able to share your screen now.
All right, let me try that.
The green button at the bottom.
Did that work?
There we go. Yep.
All right, let me see if I can get it to just show in the beginning. Everybody see? Yay, we did. Okay. As Blake said, I'm Carolyn Brackett, and I'm a member of the consulting team that we are really looking forward to working with you all on this over the next year or so to get this management plan developed. It's a really exciting process. Our team's been through it with a number of heritage areas, and it's really exciting. I was listening as everybody was doing introductions and taking notes, and how many times the word awareness came up and recognition. And that's one of the things, as Augie said, that really comes out of this process. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because a lot of it is kind of looking outward of who do we want to reach, awareness and recognition, but inevitably it also really makes a big difference for the people who live here. So was really glad to hear that. The formation of this advisory committee is really an important first step in the process of getting an organizational structure that can move this management planning process forward. So thank you to everyone who is giving time and volunteering for this. And I can hear the passion in everyone's voices for not just the specific projects that you're involved in, but the entire Delta area. So thank you for that. So now that this committee as sort of the umbrella group is organized, the next step will be putting together some advisory task groups. These will be focused on specific aspects, topics related to the management plan. And so we wanted to just share with you some information about what each committee is. And then when we talk about next steps at the end of the meeting, we'll address how we're going to move forward with getting these committees organized. But there will be 4 committees, again, focused on specific elements of the management plan. There'll be one on interpretive planning, one on resource stewardship, one on heritage development and tourism, and one on organization. And I think you can already see just from the list that these are going to all ultimately weave back together, circle back around to this advisory group. And then what we hope to end up with is a very cohesive management plan. The interpretive planning, very fortunately, is going to be led by California State Parks. Tremendous knowledge and of the region and experience and expertise in interpretive planning. So our role in this is going to be to support what they're doing. And so Katie, are you still here? I can't see everybody, so I'm hopeful that you're still here. Katie Metro with California State Parks will be leading this effort. So I'm going to ask her just to talk briefly about the activities and the role of this task group.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Metro. I'm a planner with California State Parks. We also have Heather Holm and Amanda Blosser. I don't know if you guys can share your video so that we can meet everyone. I've been with California State Parks for 25 years. My background is in, I was a museum curator and interpreter, and now I'm doing land use management and recreation planning. I've written a few interpretive plans with Heather, and I'm also an NAI certified interpretive planner. So if Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Heather Holm, I'm supervisor for the interpretive planning and programs section of the Interpretation and Education Division. And I have 17 years of interpretive experience, specifically education with state parks.
And a heck of a lot more. Amanda, are you still on?
I'm still here. My name is Amanda Blosser, and I'm working with Katie on this. I am an associate Parks and Rec specialist, work in strategic planning, and my background is in historic preservation or cultural resources, specifically the built environment. So, and I'll be assisting Katie and Heather on this interpretive planning.
Thank you. We have a lot of good experience. We've also have a lot of state parks within the heritage area. So we've got Locke Boarding House and it's a Caswell State Park, Benicia, Capitol, among many others, Delta Meadows. So we're going to, we have a vested interest in also, sharing our stories from the state parks perspective, but also, what is interpretation? It's essentially it's a method of communicating to the public, and it can be communicating anything. It can be it's a successful interpretation is when you can communicate management actions. If you're restoring an area, but also education, cultural history, natural history. Directional signage, it's communicating anything to the public. And so this plan is a higher level plan. It is, there's so many sites within this heritage area that we're providing kind of the umbrella document that'll guide the further development of specific interpretive education planning at each specific site down the road. So what we're looking to capture here is some overarching themes, the larger stories, but as we develop this, we'll also be capturing any of the other stories, supporting stories that go along with it. And I've already taken like 4 pages of notes that have some fantastic ideas and goals. We'll also be doing recommendations for partnerships, and with how to implement some of the interpretive and education goals, things like that. And so, like I said, it's a big picture thing, but to get started, the task force will be working with us fairly closely. And we'll also have other stakeholder groups involved as needed to develop our, what are these larger themes and stories we want to tell, and then help drill down to some of the smaller, not even say smaller, I would like to supporting and contributing stories too. That's all I have to say. Is if Heather or Amanda, do you have anything you want to add? We're going to be working with you guys for the next year or so. It's hopefully get involved in fairly regular correspondence, whether it be on vid Zoom or email or hopefully in person.
Thanks, Katie. And we'll go through all 4 task groups and then come back and ask if there are questions or comments, if that's okay with everybody. And that way we'll just kind of go through all of them at once. I think what you'll see is some common themes in the role of these task groups, because each one will have engagement in helping with data collection, but on different things, depending on what the task group is, and in public engagement, which is going to be a really, really important part of the management planning process. The next task group is resource stewardship, which is really an umbrella term definition. It encompasses cultural, historic, natural, recreational resources, all of the resources that make the Delta special, that make it what it is. It can also include both tangible and intangible resources. So this committee will be involved in not only looking at what the resources are, but as the title says, how to be good stewards and how to enhance them. And Augie mentioned that a lot of what national heritage areas can often do is focus on the built environment, the restoration, the development of heritage resources or cultural or natural resources. So that's something that this committee will take a close look at. There'll also be public meetings connected to this topic. And when we say helping with engagement and with public meetings, that's going to be not only helping us figure out where is the best place to hold the meetings, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have some in person, but how to get the word out, kind of test driving what's going to be presented and the types of information that we're going to want to collect. This committee will also be the one that reviews midterm reports or assessment and situation analysis reports. And Blake mentioned the resource inventory. You'll see for 3 of the 4 committees, we have assisting with that to make sure we don't leave anything off. That inventory of resources. And then the last piece, which is a requirement of management planning, is to work through the NEPA requirements. We're assuming there'll be a categorical exclusion. That's usually what happens for national heritage areas, but we'll need to go through the process. So when we've done that with other heritage areas, it involves working with the State Historic Preservation Office. And there are a couple of federal laws that kick in, the Section 106 for preservation, the Endangered Species Act, and basically documenting that what comes out of this management plan will not have an adverse effect. In other heritage areas, it's mostly a process that we go through and then make sure it's included in the management plan, get letters supporting that finding. So that again is a activity that this committee will help with. And then the third task group is heritage development and tourism. And I think you'll probably clearly see that this group is one that can take a lot of what comes out of the first 2 groups and begin to help think about how do we develop these resources. And we say heritage, but again, it can be cultural, natural resources, other types of resources. That's, again, lots of umbrella terms in this effort. And then tourism. Most heritage areas are engaged in tourism in some capacity, either being the convener to bring all of the tourism groups together to work together, the tourism agencies or CVBs, helping with the development of the resources, or in some cases actually engaging in some of the promotions. So this is something that this group will take a close look at. And as I've listed here, in order to do that, being involved in the interpretation planning and the public meetings will be a key part of that. Nancy Morgan and I will be the contacts, the facilitators for this group and for the resource Stewardship group. And then the last group is the organization task group, and Augie will be the contact for that. And this is the group that will help shape recommendations for how the heritage area will be managed going forward. So that's something that, you know, specific decisions may be made more toward the end of the planning process, but this task group will want to get going sooner rather than later, because there's going to be an investigation period of understanding how it's currently being managed, but also having the opportunity to look at how some other national heritage areas are managed, to find ideas for where funding can come from. This is a really important part of what this task group will help with, is what is the financial plan going to be? Because as has been mentioned, you'll be able to draw down funds, federal funds, but you need to match those. And then also hopefully raise funds from other sources. And so taking a look at where those can come from. So, so these are the 4 task groups. At the end of this meeting, when we talk about next steps, we're going to talk about how we see getting these task groups up and running and what your role would be in that. We want someone from this advisory committee to serve as the chair for each task group. And then hopefully there'll be 1 or more task groups that you're interested in serving on in addition to the advisory committee. But that's going to help really keep the communication flowing back and forth among all the committees and up to the advisory committee. So that's going to be a key activity for us in the next few weeks to get that organized. So we'll talk about that just a little bit more at the end of this meeting. So I'll stop and ask if there are any questions or comments before we talk. I'll turn it over to Nancy to talk about partnerships. Any questions? There was a handout, and I don't know, Blake, if you had the opportunity to send that out before the meeting. If not, we'll send it after. Okay, that gives a little more detail on the various task groups.
Yes, I did send that out yesterday.
Okay,
to the
thanks.
advisory committee.
Any questions from anybody? Okay, great.
Thanks, Carolyn. Carolyn, do you want to say a little bit more now about the next step in this process in terms of when we'll form, or was that part of the email that went out yesterday?
Forming the task groups?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was going to talk about that at the end of the meeting under next steps, but I can talk about it right now if you want.
Okay, no, that's fine. Let's leave it till the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So I'll go from here and turn it over to Nancy. You've heard a lot about all the different things that can come out of heritage areas, and some of those ways we're going to go about getting organized and get this started. But I think the common theme through all of this, you've probably picked up on by now, is partnerships. And so Nancy's going to talk about and share some really great examples.
Thank you, Carolyn. I think you may need to pass hosting duties to me, and I will share screen.
You should already have it.
Okay, sounds good.
So at the bottom, you should be able to share your screen.
Yep. All right, I'm batting cleanup for the 3 of us on the Point Heritage Development Consulting team. I am Nancy Morgan. I am a former Heritage Area Director in Cane River National Heritage Area in Louisiana. And I have the fun task today to talk a little bit about how heritage areas actually work, and then try and give you some examples. Whoops, this is going on its own, so I'm gonna make sure it doesn't do that. Hold on 1 second. And then give you some examples of how heritage areas in other places have done things, so that you then too can think about what can happen in the Delta. So the first thing I want to just reiterate is that heritage areas are a strategy. This is something that Augie mentioned Give me 1 second because it is going on its own and I want to make sure it stops doing that. Give me a second.
Nancy, I think that little book symbol down by the lower right part of your screen, as
Lower
Natasha
right.
mentioned earlier, a little bit to the left, it's a book
Okay.
symbol.
A book symbol. Oh, hold on. I think the thing is over it there. Okay. There we go. Okay. Thank you. My Zoom bar was over that. So national heritage areas are a strategy. They're collaborative conservation on a landscape level. The management plan will shape a regional vision that's based on shared heritage, and then we're going to use that as a platform for action. There are lots of different partners from different disciplines, and partners can include people that are working or volunteering in areas of government, preservation, tribal governments, local artists, historical societies, environmental organizations, all different kinds of partnerships. And a critical part of the management planning is to strengthen and expand that network of partnerships. And to do that, to build the network, you're going to kind of take a look at what's out there, what the needs are, take a look at what everyone has to offer, and then the existing partnerships as well, and identify potential partners in their capacity, and then consider the types of partnerships that are going to be beneficial as you try to develop a regional vision based on that shared heritage. Then convening the partners is a really critical role that the heritage area will play both in the management planning process, but also in the future. And that is something that in research that was done several years ago was found that heritage areas do really well, is bring a whole bunch of diverse groups together to all carry out a little piece of a regional vision so that in the end, that whole vision gets implemented. Next, there will be a plan, roles will be identified, responsibilities, timeline, outcomes. This all goes back to the management plan, but frankly, when you're dealing with partnerships, this is something that the heritage area is going to do again and again and again. And then, of course, there's implementation. And again, this is something that's going to take a while and everybody's going to have a part of it. And it's going to be very important to celebrate small successes along the way as you reach for that bigger regional vision. And then of course, there's the opportunity to evaluate and adjust. So what Augie mentioned is that there are several things national heritage areas can do: preservation, cultural conservation, education and interpretation, natural and recreational assets, tourism, economic development. And probably as you go through this management planning process, you will find things that are more important for this heritage area than others, more important than some of these other things. But you'll probably, as a national heritage area, do a little bit of all of these. And so I want to give you some examples of what partners have done in other areas. So for historic preservation projects in the Wheeling National Heritage Area, they started with individual preservation projects in the North Wheeling Historic District, moved on to the renovation of the Capitol Theater, which was done in partnership with the city, and also then finally the redevelopment of Heritage Port, which is city and County and heritage area along the Ohio River riverfront. Grants are another place where heritage areas have a lot of success in working with partners. It helps build partnerships, it helps build visibility, and it also helps build capacity with some of the partner organizations and accomplish goals within the National Heritage Area as well. So in Baltimore, they give neighborhood placemaking grants, and they help restore buildings, they help with neighborhood greening, and then they also help with interpretation and education, navigating the neighborhood. And as I said, this actually brings visibility and partnership into the heritage area. So it's a really great type of program to run. Cultural conservation is something that you all spoke a lot about, both with the Native American cultural traditions and beliefs, as well as agriculture, two of the types of living traditions that you all were speaking of earlier as important to you. In the Mississippi Delta, there was a fantastic oral history project which involved women in the Delta. It involved school kids taking oral histories. 18 months of oral histories were taken. It involved the churches, and eventually this led to a very important publication and a partnership exhibit with the Smithsonian, as well as a nonprofit that was established to help train people in photography and oral history documentation. So it really had a long-reaching impact in interpretation, education, and documenting the history of the region. In Blue Ridge National Heritage Area, they have developed thematic trails based on the heritage, both the arts as well as both the traditional arts as well as music. And a lot of these thematic trails have been developed they're more itineraries than physical trails, and they've been developed in conjunction with attractions and artists and the participation of the convention and visitor bureaus. And so again, just another way to really bring a whole lot of things together to carry out the vision. In addition to thematic trails, many national heritage areas have developed physical trails. In Delaware and Lehigh, they have a 165-mile trail that goes, 165-mile trails that goes from Wilkes-Barre to basically Philadelphia. And in the Erie Canal, they have a 450-mile water trail. And you can see how it would be really important to get, private landowners in some cases, county, city, and different state agencies involved in these really large projects. And in doing so, they are able to bring vitality as well as economic development to all the communities along the trail. So they're a huge economic development tool, as well as sharing the history and the nature of these wonderful areas. Education and interpretation is something that a lot of people mentioned education when you were talking about what's important to you. And there are two heritage areas that have done a very good job. Actually, many have, but these two heritage areas, the Illinois and Michigan Canal and National Aviation Heritage Area, in working directly with and in the schools. One, they have used a restored canal boat, called the Volunteer, in which they have lesson plans and field trip grants. And then in the rest of the year, they actually use that as a tourism attraction. And then National Aviation Heritage Area has a fantastic STEM program based on some of the Wright brothers stuff. Tourism is one of the things that often comes to mind with national heritage areas as the thing that can help both maintain a really beautiful sense of place and also attract people for economic development. So in Silos and Smokestacks in Iowa, they have 117 partner sites in which agriculture is highlighted. There are a lot of farm tours. There are a lot of tours that are kind of that secondary products coming out of farms. And whoops, hold on, I got somebody to admit. And they have a very structured way of bringing partners into their system. It's one of the more structured ways that I've seen, and that's something that we can certainly share with you all as time goes on. There's another admit. And then in Cane River National Heritage Area, where I was formerly a director, one of the big projects that we did was a wayfinding and interpretive signage project. And that included walking trails, auto trails, site signage marking. And I think this is something that's similar to what Stacy's going to be telling you later on. And we didn't pay for all of the signs, but what we did do is we convened everyone and we paid for the initial design. And then everyone from the city of Natchitoches, Louisiana to the two state parks that were within the heritage area bought into this signage program essentially, and helped create an environment that was both authentic and yet people knew what they were seeing and how to get around. The last three projects I want to share with you are larger projects that have taken years and years to complete. And the first is the Augusta Canal National Heritage Area. And these are these large economic development projects that are kind of the culmination of what heritage areas can do. So in Augusta, they redeveloped a mill building that was a former textile mill. They used it initially for hydroelectric power, which they sell back to the grid and make money off of, which is amazing to me. And then they now have redeveloped the mill as lofts and shopping and office space as well. So this has been, and then there is a 10,000-foot interpretive center. And so this has been a huge project for Augusta. Augie Carlino is the current director of Rivers of Steel National Heritage Area, where Carey Furnaces, a National Historic Landmark and now designated as a park, is county-owned property that the heritage area helps manage. They run tours. They now are able to rent the facility, and they also have massive events and some that are private and some that are big public events. They do a lot, for example, with the arts community and theater. And I think they even hosted one of the Biden events earlier this year. So there's, so again, just a redevelopment of the site, reuse of the site, took a massive partnership effort. And then finally, the Bowery redevelopment in Akron, Ohio is 20 years, $20 million, 3 major foundations. But it is a vision that the heritage area was, again, one of the first in the door to help lay the groundwork for a plan, and then was able to bring lots of partners and funding to the table. So those are just some of the examples that I wanted to share with you so you can see how partners are used. Partnership is really the heart of national heritage areas. And as you go through the management plan and build that network, I think it's going to be extremely successful, especially hearing what diverse backgrounds you all have as you are bringing something to this. So thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Nancy. Let me first ask, and any questions, clarifying questions or other questions for Nancy on her presentation. Okay, so folks, here's where we are. We one of our ground rules was to begin and end on time, and we're at 4:58. Let me ask, we're going to defer item number 6. That's the selection of a vice chair. We'll pick that up at the next meeting. The next presentation has to do with a communications plan. Let me ask you, are we going to, raise your hand if we're going to lose you in the next couple of minutes. And if you're not, if you can stick with us, and if you can tolerate another 15 minutes or so, I'd like to ask both Stacy to make her presentation and then to do a quick wrap up to conclude. Can I see just nods of the heads if that's okay, or a shaking of the head, no, I have to leave? I'm seeing a lot of nods of the heads that's okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will be good about sticking to the agenda next time. Oh, and I like those thumbs up too. Thank you for those. Those are great. Okay, any questions for Nancy? All right, well, let me turn it over to Stacy Hayden. Stacy is with the commission. She's our public information officer, and she's going to talk about the communications plan for the National Heritage Area.
Great.
Stacy.
Can you hear me okay? Can you see
Yes,
my
we can.
slides?
Yep, and we
Okay.
can. Thank you.
I'm going to make this drastically shorter than what I planned on. So I'm going to give everybody just a brief overview, but I want to let you know, we'll make sure you have these materials so you can review things yourself. We'll come back around to these items in future meetings, but also within the individual task forces as well. What I want to discuss today, it was leveraging the Visit CA Delta project to support the Delta National Heritage Area, actually utilizing the platforms and branding of this Visit CA Delta project as the Delta NHA platform and branding. So just a little bit of background of what Visit CA Delta is. It is a partnership of businesses, chambers of commerce, visitor bureaus, residents seeking to spread awareness, something you've all mentioned about the California Delta as a world-class tourism destination. And we have a few different projects that we have developed in order to do that. But before I go into those real quick, I did want to talk about why there are benefits for leveraging this project versus starting from scratch. Visit CA Delta is a solid foundation that's been worked on between the Conservancy, the Commission, and many community members within the Delta with lots of public input. But with that said, there's also a lot of room to grow as well. It will also provide consistent messaging. So instead of having a completely separate platform and website and branding, we can take what we've already developed and grow it further, make sure we're providing that consistent message versus having different messagings in different areas. Also higher reach and faster. We do have a baseline audience with Visit CA Delta. It's not the biggest audience in the world, but it is there. And so it gives us something to tap into right off the bat, allowing us to move quicker in the process of sharing all the amazing things about the Delta and Delta NHA. Along with just that quicker implementation, it takes a lot of work to build a website, lots of money to do a marketing plan, logos, there's a lot to all of those baseline products, and we kind of have those ready to go with some changes that we can bring in to focus a little bit more on the National Heritage Area while also leveraging what's already there. And then of course, more funding. Certainly there's been some funding for Visit CA Delta, but aside from some specific side projects, the website and social media are just kind of being run in-house. Utilizing it for the NHA would really allow us to have a lot more hands on deck, a lot more funding to put into these platforms to allow us to spread the word and reach more people with awareness. There is a logo that's been developed. This was developed in 2014 with a lot of community input, and it was actually developed before the Visit CA Delta project as a whole started. It was developed with the implementation of the National Heritage Area or anticipation of the National Heritage Area in mind. So the community within the Delta developed this logo with the NHA as a future possibility. There are adjustments, of course, that could be talked about being made, like simply adding National Heritage Area down to the bottom of this. Again, I'm going to go through all of this very quickly just to give you an idea of what we have, and all of this can be talked about more at a later time. We also have the website. It's visitcadelta.com. I was going to go through this with you a little bit, but I encourage you to go visit it yourself. Some of the highlights in particular are under the what to do section, where there's a lot of listings. We have almost 900 different private, public, nonprofit, recreation, tourism listings, the legacy communities. There's a lot of information on this website. We do have some stories that are related to heritage. And so there's opportunity with this website. I won't get into all of these details, but revamping it. So making it a little bit more NHA focused, making sure that's kind of the forefront, having more information about heritage and cultural topics, addition of elements that arise from the interpretive planning process, making sure that really comes into the forefront of the Visit CA Delta website, while also being able to share all the information that's already on there, which really is a part of a heritage area, recreation, tourism, where to go, where to eat, where to stay, all of those amazing things. And then just other opportunities to develop the website that I already kind of have lined up, just making the site just a more fuller, richer, interactive experience moving forward. And again, I'm not going to go into too much details on that. We also have social media channels established. So again, we already have these audiences that we can tap into and really spread the word about the National Heritage Area and the Delta as a whole. So I encourage you to go to these. We'll try to get this PowerPoint out to you so you can please like and follow all of these. There's also a lot of opportunity for creating more videos. There's just a lot of opportunity to share education and outreach in many different ways. There is, excuse me, a 5-year Delta tourism awareness marketing plan. So there, I do recommend that, and part of this process with the management plan, that there is a communication plan that is developed. But again, it doesn't have to start completely from scratch. There is a lot within this 5-year marketing plan that can be utilized, where we can either add things in and take things out that are specific to the National Heritage Area and the decisions that are made through this committee. I'll have the link here that you'll be able to get to when we send this to you. We also have a Delta sign plan. And so Nancy was talking about sign. The sign plans include everything from wayfinding signs to interpretive signs. That was also a community input driven process. So there was a lot of work put into that plan. There's a lot of great information in there, as well as already established designs that were approved that could be utilized, possibly with some adjustments for the NHA, that are kind of there and ready to go, not just for the agencies like us to install signs, but also for communities and nonprofits and localities to use as well. And then we do actually have some welcome to Sacramento, San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area signs going in. This sign design was not part of the sign plan, but it is being put in the locations that are talked about in the sign plan. We did come to this much simpler sign because it's going onto Caltrans easements, and we had to follow their design specs, but we do have signs going in to show the Delta National Heritage Area. We also have a recreation and tourism brochure. So this was developed and finalized in 2019. It's actually a very large brochure that folds down. It's kind of a map size that you'd find in a gas station. All the locations that are shared on the map area are all either non-profits or otherwise, public locations. So there's no private entities on this map. And then there's also information on here, and the heritage area is mentioned as well. And so we do have a product like this. These actually haven't been distributed very much. The plan was to get these distributed in early 2020, and with the pandemic, getting out there and getting these out was put on hold, but we are working with the Conservancy on plans to move these and make sure they get in the right place and in the right hands, so people can use this to explore more of the Delta. We do the best of the Delta every year. This 2021 will be the 5th year. It grows every year. We put a survey out and people can vote within the categories that are available. And then the businesses and locations that win the votes get a notation on the website, as well as getting a certificate and shared on social media. So this is a popular project. And then, of course, the future projects of what we can do for the NHA, not just through this platform, these platforms, but through, well, with these platforms, even growing them and developing them further, but also deciding other print collateral. These are examples I actually have on my desk right behind me that I just received from the Lost Green Valley National Heritage Corridor. They're really beautiful print materials, but also, you know, email campaigns, paid promotions for social media and traditional advertising. There's a lot of opportunity that with the NHA and having kind of that extra, the funding and the partnerships, we'll be able to do more of these things, and maybe we have been for Visit CA Delta as it stands. So that's a lot of different things. I'm happy to answer any quick questions, but again, a lot of this is stuff that we will delve into a lot more as we go through the management planning process and, you know, hashing out the interpretive themes and things of that nature. Any questions?
Any questions for Stacy?
I have a question. This is Lenora Clark. How successful do you think this CA Delta campaign has been?
I don't know how to answer that. My personal feelings are that it could be so much more successful. I mean, we have very limited funding, very limited people power to continue this. So in a lot of ways, it's been on life support until something could really be done with it. And the NHA is the opportunity to really do something with it.
Well, that was my next question, is that if the NHA decided not to use the Visit the CA Delta, would it go away?
That would be a much larger question, a great question. It's a much larger question that I don't have an answer for. So there's a lot of people involved that would make a decision like that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But I do think it does have the opportunity to be much more successful with, again, the resources that the NHA would provide. Success in marketing is always directly correlated to the time and money that can be put into it. Eric, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Stacy, thank you. Unless there are any other questions, that was both comprehensive, but you did a nice job of moving through it quickly, and appreciate that. Thank you. So item number 7 on the agenda, we will defer until the next meeting. We don't need to take that up at this time. That was the selection of a vice chair. Let's move on to item number 8, which is the last business item on the agenda, and it's the next steps for this advisory committee. And I think Carolyn's going to jump in at this time.
Sure. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for your time today. I know how valuable everyone's time is, and for joining this meeting and setting out on this journey together and getting this management plan developed. So I wanted to ask, I can't see from the names here, is Linda still here? Linda Steiner, or she may have had to jump off. I was just gonna ask her real quickly. We'll catch her next time. A couple of things on next steps. We're looking at the next meeting of this advisory committee on Wednesday, February 24th, at the same time period, 3 to 5 p.m. We'll be sending out a notice to get that on your calendar, but I wanted to go ahead and let you know. After this next meeting, what we'll try to do is set up a regular schedule. These couple of meetings are to get everything up and running, but after that, we'll try to see if we can set up a regular time so you can have that on your calendars. But the next meeting, we're also going to begin to transition from you guys having to listen to us talk a whole lot into getting the work underway. So a couple of things we will want to talk about. One is to present the timeline. Blake gave the overview timeline for what we want to accomplish this year and next, but what we want to do is begin to flesh that out, all of these meetings we've been talking about in public engagement, when that's going to happen. We also want to spend some time talking about the public engagement process, and you saw that pop up in several places with task groups and various things. And we need to begin looking at how we're going to undertake this public engagement process, especially given our limitations of not, at least for right now, being able to meet in person. We're also going to look at where we are in the interpretive planning process, getting that off the ground, and Katie is going to lead a brainstorming session for us, which will be fun. So everybody will have a chance to participate and not just have to listen. And then we'll also, as Eric said, we'll come back around to the question of the vice chair. So those are all things that'll be on the agenda. There may be some others, but again, we'll send out a notice about that. So between now and then, what we're really going to be working on is getting these focus or these task groups running. And so you will be getting a communication from us, reiterating what each committee is and what the responsibilities are, and then a form that you can respond with indicating which committee you would be interested in serving on. We also want people on these committees who are not necessarily on the advisory committee. So other people throughout the Delta that are subject matter experts or stakeholders are really interested. We'll be looking to you all for recommendations on who those people could be. And then we'll also be looking to identify, as I said, identify a chair for each committee. So you'll get one communication from us about the date for the next meeting, February 24th. Look for a separate communication about the task groups and getting those up and running.
Carolyn, it was just brought to my attention, there is a competing meeting on February 24th that will take out several of our participants. So what we're going to do, everyone, don't mark that date on your calendar. We will send out a doodle poll with other dates and times, and we'll do it that way. Please, if you could, we will try to get the doodle poll out to you tomorrow. Please reply to that as soon as you can. That way we can get the selected date and it can get on your calendars with few conflicts. I know things are filling up already, but apologies for not, as soon as we talked about that, I thought, I wonder if there might be another meeting happening at that same time.
There's always another meeting.
But for some reason, the Stakeholder Engagement Committee was not at the top of my mind, and it should have been, because
is that? Well, that is important. So.
I attend those meetings, and I would be there as important as this is. So look for the email, reply to the doodle poll. We'll use that to select our next meeting, but at the next meeting, we'll talk about creating a schedule for these, so you can get them on your calendar well into the future. Sorry about that, Carolyn, but
no worries.
And thank you, Mike Moran, for reminding us about that conflict.
That's good. Yeah, no worries. We'll find another date. Yeah. And Eric, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, are there any questions or any comments about these next steps that we've outlined? So again, the next meeting will be late February. We will look forward to that and to really initiating the work at that time. Today was really an intention to bring you all together, to have you get acquainted with your fellow committee members, to obtain some background about the task that we have ahead of us. I hope between what was presented today and what is in the binder that you feel like you have a good grounding in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta National Heritage Area Management Plan process and where we go from here. And before we wrap it up, I want to open it up to any of you. Are there any comments that you would like to make? The final agenda item is listed as, of course I moved away from the page, member announcements before we adjourn. So are there any announcements or anything else? And don't feel compelled to chime in here, but if you did want to offer something up for the entire group, this would be a great time. Okay, well, I agree with you, Mike. I am very excited as well. You know, this National Heritage Area designation was a long time in coming, and then it just snuck up on us and boom, happened like that. That's the way Congress works. So we've come down from that initial euphoria, and you know, now that we're you know, deep into this COVID experience, we're ready to pick this up and really get moving. I think 2021 is going to be a great year in planning for this National Heritage Area. And I could not be more appreciative of the willingness all of you have in helping us out with this. We had 100% participation today. It's a great way to start. So thank you all very much. Thanks for sticking with us a few minutes after 5 o'clock. And unless there's anything else to cover at this time, we will call this meeting adjourned. Please look for the follow-up email, reply to the doodle poll. We'll get the date set in late February very soon. Thank you to all the presenters, the Point Heritage team, Blake, Katie, Stacy, all of our committee members, and we'll see you real soon. Thanks everyone.